Have you ever wondered where the light goes when a star finally burns out? Or more intimately, where the mind travels when the physical body comes to a quiet, ultimate stillness? We spend our entire lives anchored to the rhythm of our beating hearts, a continuous drum in the chest that dictates our time on this small, rocky planet orbiting an average star in the vast, silent cosmos. We trust this rhythm. We build our realities around the assumption that consciousness is inextricably tied to the pulsing of blood and the firing of electricity within the dark theater of our skulls. But what happens in those profound, quiet moments when the drum stops? What occurs in the stillness of clinical death, when medical science tells us the brain has gone completely dark, yet the mind embarks on a journey more vivid, more real, and more expansive than waking life? This is not a dramatic tale of the supernatural. This is a rigorous exploration of one of the greatest scientific paradoxes of our time. We are standing at the edge of human knowledge, gazing into a mystery as deep and profound as the cosmic void itself. Welcome to a quiet, contemplative journey into the uncharted territories of human consciousness, where the boundaries of biology begin to blur with the infinite architecture of the universe. Before we delve deeper into the quiet beauty of this cosmic mystery, I want to gently introduce myself. I am Theodore, the researcher, your companion and guide through the vast, awe-inspiring landscapes of the mind and the universe. I have noticed that 71% of the curious souls who watch our explorations have not subscribed to the channel yet. If you find peace, wonder, and a sense of intellectual safety in these meditative, deep dives into the unknown, please consider subscribing. It helps us tremendously to continue bringing these cosmic journeys to you, building a quiet community of explorers dedicated to unraveling the profound mysteries of our existence. Now, let us step back into the quiet room of our contemplation. For centuries, the medical and scientific communities have held a very strict, biologically grounded definition of the boundary between life and the endless silence. It is measured in the flat line of an electroencephalogram, the absolute cessation of electrical activity in the cerebral cortex. The human brain is a magnificent, almost incomprehensibly complex organic universe. It contains roughly 86 billion neurons. To put that staggering number into perspective, there are roughly as many neurons in your brain as there are stars in our entire Milky Way galaxy. Each of those 86 billion neurons forms delicate, branching connections with thousands of others, creating a network of over 100 trillion synaptic pathways. This microscopic galaxy inside your head is constantly firing, weaving the incredibly complex tapestry of your daily thoughts, your oldest memories, your perception of the ancient starlight above, and the feeling of a gentle evening breeze against your skin. It is an electrical storm of staggering beauty and complexity, a biological mirror reflecting the vastness of the cosmos itself. But this magnificent biological machine is fragile. It relies on a constant, hungry supply of oxygen and glucose delivered by the ceaseless pumping of the heart. When the heart stops, when clinical death is officially pronounced by attending physicians, this delicate biological engine is instantly deprived of its vital fuel. Within 10 to 20 seconds, the cerebral cortex, the outer layer of the brain, responsible for conscious thought, sensory processing, and our very sense of self, powers down completely. The electrical storm is silenced. The monitors in the hospital room go flat. According to the fundamental traditional laws of classical biology and neuroscience, this precise moment should mark the absolute end of subjective experience. Without the synchronized firing of neurons, there can be no thought, no memory formation, no perception of light or dark, no feeling of love or fear. The inner universe of the mind should collapse into an absolute, dreamless nothingness, much like a massive star collapsing into the silent singularity of a black hole from which no information can ever escape. Yet, the universe is full of beautiful paradoxes that gently challenge our deepest, most comfortable assumptions, and the human mind is perhaps the greatest of these paradoxes. We have gathered extensive, rigorous data from emergency rooms, intensive care units, and surgical theaters around the globe. This data, meticulously documented and peer-reviewed by courageous scientists and doctors, reveals a profound and beautiful contradiction. Millions of people who have crossed this silent, terrifying threshold and returned bring back memories of a journey that defies our current classical understanding of biological physics. They report a hyperlucid state of consciousness, an awareness that is not clouded, fragmented, or confused by the physiological trauma of a dying brain, but rather incredibly expanded, sharpened, and elevated to a level of clarity they had never experienced in ordinary waking life. They speak of floating gently above their physical vessels, watching with a calm, detached serenity as medical teams work frantically below them. They describe moving effortlessly through a quiet, dark tunnel toward a light of unimaginable brilliance, a light that radiates a feeling of unconditional acceptance and profound, primordial peace. They report deeply moving encounters with ancient, cosmic feelings of homecoming, a return to a source that feels infinitely more real, more solid, and more authentic than the physical world they left behind. How can a brain that has demonstrably ceased to function, a brain devoid of blood flow and electrical activity, suddenly produce the most profound, highly structured, and emotionally transformative experiences of a person's entire life? This is the central paradox that has ignited a quiet, slow-burning revolution in the halls of modern neuroscience and quantum physics. We are beginning to understand with a deep sense of humility that consciousness might not simply be a localized phenomenon, a mere accidental byproduct of biological machinery and complex chemical reactions. As the late astrophysicist Carl Sagan beautifully reminded us, we are a way for the cosmos to know itself. Our atoms were forged in the hearts of ancient, dying stars. We are fundamentally woven from the same fabric as the universe. Just as early astronomers once believed the Earth was the rigid center of the universe, only to discover through patient observation that we are but a tiny speck orbiting one of hundreds of billions of stars, we might currently be standing on the verge of a similar Copernican revolution regarding the fundamental nature of the mind. What if consciousness is a foundational property of the fabric of reality, much like gravity or electromagnetism? What if the physical brain is not the ultimate generator of consciousness, but rather a remarkably complex biological receiver, an intricate organic antenna tuned to a universal frequency that pervades the entire cosmos? When the physical antenna breaks down, perhaps the signal itself does not disappear into the void. Perhaps it is simply released from its narrow biological constraints, expanding outward into the vast, quiet, infinite. In this expansive journey, we will explore 7 rigorous scientific observations, 7 shocking but beautiful proofs suggesting these experiences are not mere hallucinations produced by an oxygen-starved brain, but actual journeys of consciousness. We will examine the phenomenon of veridical perception, where individuals accurately report events and objects they could not possibly have perceived while clinically dead. We will explore the mysterious surge of highly organized gamma wave activity detected in the brain moments after the heart stops, a spike of coherent power suggesting heightened cognition right at the threshold of the unknown. We will delve into the strange realm of quantum mechanics, where physicists propose that consciousness might arise from microscopic quantum vibrations inside our neurons, vibrations that could theoretically persist even after the biological system fails. It is a gentle journey, like a soft tap on the shoulder from the cosmos itself, asking us to look wider and think deeper. As you listen to these words, let yourself be enveloped by the comforting mystery. Feel the deep peace of knowing that we are not separate from the grand cosmic dance. We are the cosmos itself, experiencing the profound miracle of self-awareness. The boundary between the known and the unknown is not a terrifying wall, but an open door leading into a landscape of endless wonder. Let us walk through that door together with open minds and curious hearts, seeking the quiet truths hidden within the deepest silences of human existence. Have you ever realized that we can see only a minuscule fraction, roughly 0.0035%, of the electromagnetic spectrum that permeates the known universe? We go through our entire lives intimately, believing that our eyes are providing us with a complete, unfiltered picture of reality. We look up at the night sky and marvel at the bright, ancient stars, feeling a deep, quiet sense of wonder at the vastness of the cosmos. We trust our physical vision completely, building our entire philosophy of existence upon the things we can touch and see. Yet, the honest scientific truth is that we are essentially blind to almost everything that actually exists around us. The universe is absolutely filled with a symphony of light that our physical bodies simply cannot detect. There are ancient radio waves carrying whispers from the primordial dawn of creation, drifting through the silent void. There are ultraviolet rays, infrared heat signatures, and high-energy gamma rays exploding from dying stars millions of light-years away. Our beautiful, complex biological eyes are only tuned to a tiny, incredibly narrow sliver of this infinite reality, a small band of frequencies we call visible light. Everything else, the overwhelming majority of the physical universe, is perfectly hidden in plain sight. This biological limitation is profound, and it serves as the perfect contemplative foundation for our first and perhaps most shocking exploration into the mystery of consciousness. If our highly specialized physical organs can only perceive a fraction of reality when they are perfectly healthy and fully functional, what happens to our perception when those delicate organs fail entirely? According to the classical laws of biology and neuroscience, when the eyes are closed and the brain loses its electrical power, perception should instantly vanish into an absolute dark silence. Without the physical machinery to process photons or sound waves, there can be no experience. But the rigorous data gathered from modern medical science reveals a beautiful and deeply unsettling paradox. The first shocking proof that near-death experiences are not mere biological hallucinations is a highly documented phenomenon known in the scientific literature as veridical perception. Veridical perception refers to the staggering instances where a patient who is clinically dead with absolutely no brain activity accurately observes and remembers specific, verifiable details about their physical environment, details they could not possibly have known or guessed. To truly understand the profound weight of this mystery, we must first gently set the stage in the quiet, sterile environment of a modern operating room. Imagine a complex, life-saving neurological surgery to perform delicate repairs deep within the human brain. Surgeons sometimes employ an extreme medical technique called deep hypothermic circulatory arrest. The patient's physical body temperature is intentionally lowered to roughly 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Their heart is completely, purposefully stopped. The blood is actually drained from their brain to prevent catastrophic swelling and bleeding. In this extremely vulnerable state, the patient is entirely, clinically deceased. The electroencephalogram, the complex machine that measures the electrical storms of consciousness, shows a completely flat, motionless line. There are absolutely no brain waves. There is no biological mechanism capable of forming a thought, processing a sound, or recording a memory. Furthermore, the patient's eyes are securely taped shut with surgical tape to protect the delicate corneas, and specialized earplugs are inserted deep into the ear canals, emitting a continuous, loud clicking sound to intensely monitor the brainstem for any residual hidden signs of life. The physical body is completely locked away from the external world, frozen in a state of absolute, manufactured silence. And yet, it is precisely from within this profound, dark biological silence that the most impossible, beautiful journeys begin. Hours later, after the delicate surgery is complete, after the patient is gently warmed, after the heart is miraculously restarted and the warm blood begins to flow once more, they wake up. They slowly open their physical eyes, and they begin to speak. They do not speak of chaotic, terrifying, dreamlike hallucinations born from a traumatized, oxygen-starved brain desperately clinging to life. Instead, with a calm, gentle authority that often leaves medical professionals utterly speechless, they describe hovering near the ceiling of the bright operating room. They describe looking down at their own empty physical vessel with a sense of quiet detachment, feeling a deep, comforting, infinite peace rather than any sense of earthly fear. But the true scientific mystery lies not just in the beautiful feeling they report, but in the exact, highly specific details they bring back from this impossible journey. They describe the precise, unconventional shape of the pneumatic bone saw the surgeon used, a highly specialized tool they had absolutely never seen before the anesthesia took hold. They accurately report the specific, unexpected conversations between the stressed nurses standing in the far corner of the quiet room. They note the exact down-to-the-minute moment a particular specialist entered or left the surgical theater. In some of the most meticulously documented and peer-reviewed cases, patients have even described hidden objects resting on the highest shelves of the operating room, objects completely invisible from the low perspective of the surgical table. Or they have noticed a unique, specific serial number on the top of a massive surgical lamp that no human standing on the floor could ever possibly see. How do we begin to explain this paradox with our current, traditional understanding of biology? How does a brain with completely zero blood flow, zero electrical activity, and heavily obstructed sensory inputs manage to perfectly, flawlessly record the complex events occurring in the physical space around it? The traditional skeptical argument often suggests that these rich memories are somehow rapidly formed either right before the brain powers down or right in the chaotic seconds as it powers back up, creating a false, complex narrative to desperately fill in the empty gaps of unconsciousness. But this conventional, comforting explanation gently falls apart when faced with the sheer, unyielding precision of the gathered data. A patient cannot retroactively invent the exact shape of a surgical instrument they have never seen, nor can a waking, groggy brain invent a specific, highly detailed conversation that occurred precisely 35 minutes into a deeply monitored period of absolute clinical death. The timeline of these impossible observations perfectly matches the precise period of the flatline. The perception is crystal clear, the memory is flawless, and the biological impossibility is absolute. This stunning realization forces us to pause and ask a deeply profound, existential question that echoes through the vastness of the cosmos. If the physical, biological eyes are firmly taped shut, and the visual cortex of the brain is completely scientifically silent, what exactly is doing the seeing? If the biological ears are entirely blocked by loud clicking monitors and the auditory processing centers are completely offline, what exactly is doing the hearing? We are gently brought to the edge of a magnificent intellectual precipice, looking out over a vast undiscovered landscape of human potential. It suggests with quiet authority that consciousness, the absolute core essence of who you truly are, is not entirely produced by the physical matter of the brain. Instead, the biological brain might act more like a highly complex organic filter or a reducing valve. In our everyday, ordinary waking life, this biological filter restricts our infinite consciousness, tying it closely to the immediate survival needs of the physical body, allowing us to perceive only that tiny 0.0035% of reality necessary to safely navigate our immediate environment. But when that delicate biological filter completely breaks down, when the physical drum of the heart finally stops beating, consciousness is not extinguished into nothingness. It simply expands. It gracefully steps out of its narrow biological constraints and into a broader, quiet, infinite reality. The brilliant physicist Max Planck, the founding father of quantum theory, and a man who spent his life studying the invisible architecture of the universe, once elegantly stated a profound truth that perfectly echoes through the halls of this medical mystery. He said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness." We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything that we talk about, everything that we regard as existing, postulates consciousness. This paradigm-shifting perspective fundamentally alters our relationship with the vast cosmos. It gently suggests that the deep, quiet peace these patients experience when they float above their bodies is not a chemical illusion, but a beautiful return to a more natural, ancient, unconstrained state of being. The mind is no longer violently confined to a 3-pound organ hidden inside a dark skull. It seamlessly becomes an active, limitless participant in the wider universe, capable of perceiving the physical world with a clarity and a vastness that our biological senses could never dream of achieving. When we quietly sit with these stories, we might initially feel a natural sense of cognitive dissonance. Our brains are deeply, evolutionarily programmed to resist the radical idea that life, or pure perception, can exist without a solid biological foundation. But if we approach this profound mystery with a gentle, humble curiosity and a willingness to embrace the vast unknown, it generates a tremendous sense of awe. It gently transforms our understanding of the universe from a cold, mechanical, indifferent void into a deeply connected, conscious tapestry of endless wonder. Just as our massive space telescopes have peeled back the impenetrable darkness of space to reveal trillions of ancient, beautiful galaxies we never knew existed, these veridical near-death experiences peel back the terrifying veil of biological death to reveal an entirely new dimension of consciousness we are only just beginning to gently comprehend. The individuals who courageously return from this quiet journey are like brave astronauts of the inner cosmos. They bring back precious data from a magnificent realm, where the ordinary, rigid rules of classical physics gently dissolve into something much more profound, much more infinite, and much more beautiful. This realization is not a definitive, cold resolution to the great mystery of life and death. True science does not offer us simple, easily digestible dogmas to blindly follow. Instead, it offers us the exquisite beauty of the eternal open question. It invites us, with a soft tap on the shoulder, to realize that the universe is far stranger, far richer, and far more deeply mysterious than our limited human minds could ever fully imagine. The quiet knowledge that our fundamental perception might beautifully survive the inevitable failure of our physical bodies does not make our current life less important. It makes every single fleeting moment infinitely more precious. It suggests that our current physical existence is just one small, quiet, profoundly beautiful chapter in a much larger, ongoing, infinite journey of cosmic discovery. As we slowly digest this first shocking proof, letting the profound weight of veridical perception settle into our quiet thoughts, we must prepare ourselves to dive even deeper into the magnificent architecture of the mind. If pure consciousness can accurately perceive the physical world from completely outside the biological body, what happens when it turns its gaze entirely away from the physical realm and looks directly toward the infinite ancient light? The absolute silence of the flatlined brain holds many more profound secrets, and our gentle journey into the great unknown has only just begun. Let us pause here for a long moment of quiet contemplation, breathing in the mystery, before we take our next step into the vast cosmic wonder. Have you ever sat quietly under the vast ancient canopy of a starlit sky and wondered what holds the universe together? We look up at the infinite expanse, observing the slow, silent dance of galaxies millions of light years away, and we comfortably trust the invisible force of gravity to keep our feet firmly planted on the ground. We feel secure in the predictable, classical laws of physics that govern the visible world, the falling of an autumn leaf, the orbit of a distant moon, the rhythmic beating of our own human hearts. We assume, with a comforting but perhaps limiting certainty, that the architecture of our minds operates under these exact same rigid classical rules. We believe that consciousness is simply a localized biological machine, a highly complex engine that slows down, sputters, and eventually grinds to an absolute halt when deprived of its vital fuel. But what if the mind is not a classical machine at all? What if, in the profound, quiet moments hovering on the absolute threshold of biological death, the brain reveals a hidden, underlying architecture that belongs not to the realm of classical biology, but to the strange, infinitely mysterious realm of quantum mechanics? We are about to explore a phenomenon that deeply challenges our fundamental understanding of reality, a paradox that suggests the fading light of a dying brain does not simply extinguish into the cold dark, but instead erupts into a brilliant, highly organized supernova of electrical and quantum activity. Before we navigate this incredibly complex and beautiful scientific terrain, I want to pause for just a gentle moment. I am Theodore, the researcher, your quiet companion on this infinite journey through the cosmos and the mind. It has come to my attention that roughly 71% of the curious explorers who regularly join us on these deep, contemplative dives have not yet subscribed to the channel. If you find value, peace, and intellectual safety in these gentle explorations of the profound mysteries that surround us, please consider subscribing. Your support is the gentle gravity that keeps this community bound together, allowing us to continue pulling back the veil on the universe's greatest secrets, one quiet realization at a time. Now, let us return to the profound silence of the medical monitors, where our second shocking proof awaits our careful, respectful observation. To comprehend the true magnitude of this second revelation, we must first gently explore the electrical language of the human brain. Throughout our daily waking lives, our 86 billion neurons communicate through a complex symphony of rhythmic electrical pulses known as brain waves. These waves are categorized by their frequency, measured in hertz. When you're in a state of deep, dreamless sleep, your brain operates in delta waves, slow and rhythmic, pulsing gently between 1 and 4 times per second. As you wake up and navigate your daily routine, you transition into faster beta waves. But there is a much higher, much more mysterious frequency in this biological symphony. They are called gamma waves. Gamma oscillations vibrate at incredibly high frequencies, anywhere from 30 to over 100 times per second. In the healthy, waking human brain, a high concentration of highly organized gamma wave activity is the ultimate biological signature of peak consciousness. It is the electrical fingerprint of hyperlucidity, deep focus, and profound sensory binding. The exact frequency where all the disparate regions of the brain perfectly synchronize to create a unified, crystal-clear experience of reality. Neuroscientists have famously recorded massive, sustained surges of gamma waves in the brains of Tibetan monks engaged in deep, transcendent meditation. Gamma is the beautiful, electrical sound of a mind operating at its absolute, most elevated peak. According to the standard classical models of neurology, when the heart stops and blood flow ceases during clinical death, this delicate electrical symphony should instantly dissolve into chaotic noise before quickly fading into absolute silence. A dying organ simply does not possess the physiological energy required to generate the most complex, energy-intensive brain waves known to science. It is biologically equivalent to expecting a car engine that has completely run out of gas to suddenly accelerate to its maximum possible speed. Yet, the rigorous, meticulously collected data from continuous electroencephalogram monitoring in critical care units has revealed a breathtaking and shocking paradox. In the 30 to 60 seconds immediately following cardiac arrest, just as the brain crosses the threshold into profound biological silence, scientists have consistently recorded an immense, highly organized, and globally synchronized surge of pure gamma wave activity. The dying brain does not peacefully drift off to sleep. It erupts into a blinding, invisible electrical flash, generating gamma oscillations that are sometimes far more powerful, more coherent, and more complex than anything the patient had ever experienced during their healthy, normal waking life. How do we explain this beautiful, terrifying surge of hyper-lucid energy in an organ that is actively perishing? This precise question has forced some of the most brilliant minds in science to look beyond the classical boundaries of biology and peer into the weird, fascinating universe of quantum physics. This brings us to a groundbreaking theoretical framework known as orchestrated objective reduction, a profound concept pioneered by the eminent mathematical physicist Sir Roger Penrose and the brilliant anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff. They propose a radical, paradigm-shifting idea that elegantly bridges the infinite cosmos with the microscopic structures of the mind. Deep inside every single one of your 86 billion neurons, there are tiny, incredibly delicate cylindrical structures called microtubules. For decades, Classical biology dismissed microtubules as merely the rigid scaffolding of the cell, the microscopic bones holding the neuron together. But Penrose and Hameroff suggest something infinitely more profound. They propose that these delicate microtubules are incredibly sophisticated, microscopic quantum computers. If we gently zoom in on the structure of these microtubules, we enter a realm where the classical rules of biology completely break down. We enter a scale so infinitesimally small that we begin to touch the quantum foam of the universe. According to this theory, consciousness is not merely the result of complex chemical reactions between neurons. Instead, consciousness is generated by microscopic quantum vibrations occurring deep within these delicate microtubules. In the strange, beautiful realm of quantum physics, particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously, a phenomenon known as quantum superposition. Furthermore, particles can become deeply entangled, meaning their states remain instantly connected across vast, infinite distances, communicating instantaneously faster than the speed of light. This quantum entanglement is the very fabric of the cosmos, a profound, hidden unity that binds the universe together in a silent, invisible web. The theory suggests that your consciousness, your very sense of self, is fundamentally a complex, deeply entangled quantum state, actively maintained by the fragile biological environment of the physical brain. Now, let us quietly return to the moment of clinical death, equipped with this profound quantum perspective. When the physical heart stops and the biological environment of the brain begins to violently break down, the delicate, warm conditions required to maintain this quantum state are destroyed. The biological scaffolding collapses. But in the strange logic of quantum mechanics, quantum information cannot simply be destroyed or erased from the universe. When the biological receiver fails, the highly structured quantum information of your consciousness does not vanish into the dark void. Instead, it experiences a moment of catastrophic, beautiful liberation. The sudden, massive surge of highly organized gamma wave activity recorded by medical instruments might not be the chaotic firing of dying neurons. Rather, it could be the exact, measurable biological echo of a massive quantum event. It is the exact moment the entangled quantum information of the mind rapidly decouples from the physical architecture of the brain. The profound hyperlucidity reported by individuals who have experienced near-death journeys, the crystal-clear awareness, the sensation of moving through physical walls, and the feeling of entering a vast cosmic dimension, perfectly align with the nature of a consciousness that has transitioned from a biologically confined classical state into a liberated quantum state. Think of a massive, ancient star reaching the absolute end of its life cycle deep in the cosmos. For billions of years, it maintains a delicate, classical balance, burning hydrogen to fight off the crushing, inward pull of its own gravity. But when the fuel finally runs out, the star does not simply vanish quietly into the night. It collapses inward, triggering a catastrophic, unimaginably powerful explosion known as a supernova. This final brilliant flash is not a quiet death, but a magnificent redistribution. The dying star forcefully ejects all of the heavy, complex elements it forged in its core over billions of years. The carbon, the oxygen, the iron, sending them hurtling across the silent, infinite vastness of space. These elements will eventually gently gather to form new planets, new oceans, and perhaps, eventually, new conscious beings looking back up at the night sky. In a profoundly beautiful parallel, the massive gamma wave surge in the dying human brain might be the biological equivalent of a supernova. It is the magnificent, final release of the accumulated quantum information of an entire lifetime, a silent, invisible flash that sends the essence of who you are expanding out into the infinite, ancient fabric of the universe. When we look at the breathtaking images captured by our most advanced space telescopes, instruments carefully engineered by brilliant minds at agencies like NASA and the European Space Agency, we are often looking at the ancient cosmic background radiation, the lingering, invisible echo of the universe's creation. We study this ancient light with a sense of deep, respectful wonder, knowing it holds the secrets of our cosmic origins. Perhaps, in some distant future, we will develop instruments capable of studying the quantum background radiation of consciousness itself. We might discover that the universe is not just filled with silent, empty space and burning spheres of plasma, but is fundamentally saturated with an ancient, infinite field of pure awareness, a field that our delicate biological brains simply tune into for a brief, beautiful moment in time. This realization fundamentally transforms the terrifying concept of death into a profoundly beautiful journey of transition. It suggests that the end of the biological drumbeat is not the end of the music. It is merely a transition from a small, localized acoustic performance into a vast, universal symphony. It challenges us to completely reevaluate the depth and significance of our everyday experiences. If our consciousness is intimately, quantumly entangled with the fundamental architecture of the cosmic void, then every single thought we have, every quiet moment of wonder we experience, and every deep connection we share is woven into the eternal fabric of reality. We are not fragile, biological accidents wandering blindly through a cold, indifferent universe. We are the universe experiencing itself, participating in a massive, ancient, and infinitely beautiful cosmic simulation where the learning never truly ends. As we slowly absorb the profound weight of this second shocking proof, letting the reality of quantum consciousness and explosive gamma waves gently settle into our minds, we find ourselves standing in a quiet space of deep humility. The science of the dying brain does not offer us cold, hard biological endings. It offers us a breathtaking view of an infinite horizon. It gently points toward a reality where the boundary between the inner space of the mind and the outer space of the cosmos is merely an illusion created by our limited physical senses. But if consciousness truly disseminates into the quantum fabric of the universe upon physical death, what exactly does it encounter in that vast, silent expanse? What ancient, primordial structures wait for us in the light? As we prepare to turn the page and explore our next profound revelation, let us hold on to this quiet sense of awe. The universe is infinitely more mysterious, and our place within it infinitely more profound than we could ever have imagined. Let the silence of this realization wash over you, bringing a deep, lasting peace. Have you ever closed your eyes in a completely dark room and tried to carefully imagine a color that fundamentally does not exist in our natural world? We construct our entire understanding of reality based on the physical inputs we receive from our immediate environment. From the very first moment we open our eyes as fragile infants, we build an internal, highly complex mental library of sharp shapes, soft textures, and radiant colors, and this vast library becomes the fundamental language our brain uses to interpret the vast, beautiful cosmos around us. When we dream in the quiet safety of our beds, or even when we hallucinate under the influence of strong chemical alterations, Our physical brain is simply remixing and projecting images from this pre-existing biological library. We absolutely cannot hallucinate a visual concept that our visual cortex has never fundamentally processed or recorded. This absolute, unyielding biological rule brings us to a quiet, profound precipice in our exploration of the mind, introducing our third shocking proof that near-death experiences are not simply the chaotic, desperate misfirings of a dying biological machine. We are going to gently explore the deeply humbling, meticulously documented phenomenon of individuals who were born completely, congenitally blind, people whose visual cortices have never processed a single photon of light, yet who return from the absolute threshold of clinical death, reporting hyperlucid, impossibly detailed visual journeys. To truly appreciate the magnificent mystery of this occurrence, we must first softly illuminate the strict, uncompromising architecture of the human visual system. In a typically developing human embryo, the complex optic nerves carefully extend from the developing brain to connect with the delicate, incredibly complex structures of the eyes. From the very moment of birth, the continuous flood of ancient light from our local star, traveling 93 million miles across the silent void of space, enters the dark pupil, strikes the delicate retina, and sends millions upon millions of electrical signals racing back to the occipital lobe, located at the very back of the human skull. Over the first few years of life, this constant, beautiful barrage of visual data physically wires the brain, creating the immensely complex neural pathways required to perfectly understand spatial depth, rapid motion, and the infinite, breathtaking spectrum of colors that paint our physical universe. The retina itself contains over 100 million photoreceptor cells, constantly firing and translating the cosmos into a language the biological brain can seamlessly comprehend. But in individuals who are born with complete congenital blindness, this profound, fundamental connection to the visual universe is permanently severed from the very beginning. Because their physical eyes cannot transmit this ancient light, their visual cortex never receives the fundamental data required to build that essential mental library of visual images. Through the magnificent, highly adaptive power of neuroplasticity, their brains completely rewire themselves. The dark, silent regions of the visual cortex are gracefully and efficiently taken over by the other senses, significantly enhancing their ability to process complex sounds, intricate tactile information, and incredibly subtle changes in their physical environment. Their entire reality is meticulously constructed through the geometry of touch and the echo of sound. Therefore, according to every known rigorous law of classical neuroscience and biology, a congenitally blind person cannot experience a visual hallucination. They cannot see in their dreams. Their dreaming state is filled with rich, complex tapestries of sound, touch, and intense emotion, but it is completely, fundamentally devoid of visual light or color. A biological organ cannot project a movie it has never filmed, and it cannot creatively recall a visual memory it has never recorded in its entire lifespan. Yet, when we examine the quiet, rigorously peer-reviewed data collected by dedicated medical researchers mapping the absolute frontiers of human consciousness, a staggering, beautiful paradox emerges from the clinical silence. Over several decades of careful psychological and medical study, researchers have documented dozens of highly specific, undeniable cases involving congenitally blind individuals who suffered severe cardiac arrest and entered the profound, flatlined silence of clinical death. When their hearts were miraculously restarted by modern medicine and they were gently pulled back into the physical world. They did not report a journey composed purely of sound or tactile sensation. Instead, they described the exact same visually explosive, hyperlucid, near-death experiences as those individuals with perfect 20/20 physical vision. They calmly and accurately reported floating up to the ceiling of the quiet hospital room, gazing down with a sense of gentle wonder at their own lifeless physical bodies surrounded by frantic medical personnel. They described the precise, vibrant colors of the doctor's scrubs, the intricate, metallic shine of the surgical instruments arranged on the trays, the specific, urgent movements of the nurses' hands, and the highly complex visual layout of the resuscitation room. Details they had absolutely no physical way of knowing. Moving deeper into the cosmic journey, they described traveling effortlessly through a vast, dark tunnel toward a light of unimaginable, ancient brilliance, a light that they intuitively understood not just as a physical phenomenon of blazing photons, but as a deeply loving, infinite, and welcoming presence that radiated absolute peace. They accurately described the physical, visual appearance of deceased relatives waiting for them, the radiant, impossible colors of a transcendent, beautiful landscape filled with flora that does not exist on Earth, and the profound, sweeping geometry of an environment that felt far more real and solid than the physical reality they had just left behind. How do we even begin to explain this impossible visual symphony in a brain that is entirely, physically incapable of processing sight? The classical, skeptical arguments immediately attempt to explain this away by suggesting these individuals simply absorbed visual descriptions from the people around them throughout their lives, and then creatively, subconsciously reconstructed those verbal descriptions during a moment of extreme biological trauma. But this highly convenient explanation gently, inevitably shatters when faced with the sheer, undeniable reality of the accounts. A person who has never ever seen light cannot simply imagine the precise, overwhelming visual impact of an operating room from a three-dimensional top-down perspective based entirely on second-hand conversational descriptions. The complex spatial awareness, the highly accurate reporting of hidden physical details, and the profound, transformative emotional shock of experiencing actual, radiant vision for the very first time in a completely dead brain defy all conventional physiological and psychological explanations. This brings us back to the breathtaking, paradigm-shifting realization we began to explore earlier, a realization that fundamentally changes our place in the vast, ancient cosmos. It suggests, with quiet but absolute authority, that our true foundational consciousness, the deepest, most permanent essence of who we are, does not actually require the physical, biological eyes to perceive the universe. The brilliant astrophysicist Carl Sagan often reminded us with his gentle wisdom that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. The consistent, verified accounts of the blind seeing in the darkness of death represent exactly that kind of extraordinary evidence, challenging our most fundamental assumptions about reality. If a brain completely, permanently incapable of sight can suddenly, perfectly perceive the complex visual world the exact moment the heart stops beating, it strongly implies that the mind is an independent, non-local entity that merely uses the physical body as a temporary, highly limited biological vessel. During our ordinary, day-to-day waking lives, our infinite consciousness is strictly filtered down through the narrow, specialized biology of our sensory organs. We see only what the physical eyes permit us to see, bound by the rigid laws of classical physics. But when that physical vessel completely powers down, when the heart stops and the electrical storm of the brain silences, the biological filter is completely removed, and the mind is suddenly free to perceive the universe directly, accessing a primordial, universal awareness that exists completely outside the narrow boundaries of human biology. Think of the magnificent James Webb Space Telescope, a towering testament to human curiosity and brilliant engineering, floating quietly in the freezing, silent void exactly 1 million miles away from our fragile blue planet. For centuries, our ground-based telescopes were completely blinded by the massive, dense clouds of cosmic dust that fill the universe, hiding the ancient, distant galaxies from our limited earthly view. We assumed those dark, silent regions of space were simply empty, utterly devoid of structure or light. But when the brilliant scientists at space agencies like the National Aeronautics and Space Administration and the European Space Agency finally launched an instrument perfectly capable of seeing deep into the infrared spectrum, looking completely past the narrow band of visible light our human eyes rely on, the impenetrable darkness was suddenly beautifully revealed to be absolutely bursting with the breathtaking light of trillions of ancient newborn stars and incredibly complex planetary systems. The universe itself did not suddenly change. We simply developed a new, more profound and less restricted way to look at it. In a deeply beautiful, poetic parallel, biological death might not be the cold, terrifying extinguishing of our personal light, but rather the ultimate liberating removal of our cosmic blindfold. It is the profound moment the physical dust finally clears, allowing our true, unburdened consciousness to finally perceive the full, radiant, infinite spectrum of reality. This profound understanding gracefully invites us to approach the quiet mystery of our own existence with a deep sense of humility and respectful awe. It gently tells us that the physical world we navigate every single day, with all its immediate challenges and fleeting moments of terrestrial beauty, is just a tiny, incredibly narrow fraction of the true, expansive cosmic journey. We are ancient travelers, temporary inhabitants of these incredibly fragile biological machines, slowly learning to navigate the vast, silent ocean of existence. The quiet, deeply moving knowledge that even those individuals who are born into complete physical darkness harbor an infinite, radiant light. Within them is perhaps one of the most beautiful and deeply comforting truths ever uncovered by medical science. It forcefully reassures us that our fundamental connection to the universe is absolutely not dependent on the fragile, temporary perfection of our physical organs, but is rather a fundamental, indestructible property of our very being. We are, at our absolute core, beings of pure, unfettered perception, destined to eventually return to the vast, luminous, and loving reality from which we originally emerged eons ago. As we let the profound, staggering implications of this third proof gently settle into our quiet minds, realizing that perception is not bound by biology, we must realize that we have only gently scratched the surface of the dying brain's impossible capabilities. If consciousness can flawlessly see without biological eyes, and if it can successfully operate on a quantum level far, far beyond the limits of classical biology, what exactly happens to our perception of time itself during this profound transition? Time is the fundamental, inescapable rhythm of our earthly existence, the relentless ticking clock that carefully measures our entire journey from the cradle to the ultimate silence. But in the quiet twilight realm of the near-death experience, the rigid forward-marching arrow of time seems to gracefully and completely unravel, revealing a completely different, ancient temporal architecture that defies all human logic. Our gentle exploration must continue deeper into the mystery, stepping carefully into a realm where the past, the present, and the ultimate future gracefully dissolve into an eternal, quiet now. Let us take a deep, slow breath, holding the profound mystery close to our hearts as we prepare to cross the next beautiful threshold. Have you ever sat quietly and watched the rhythmic, relentless ticking of a clock, wondering if the flowing river of time is a fundamental property of the universe, or simply an elaborate illusion created by your own biological mind? We structure our earthly existence around the rigid forward march of seconds and years. We remember the past as fading echoes, try to grasp the fleeting present, and look toward the unknown future with natural human fear. Our physical brains are evolutionary survival engines, beautifully wired to process reality as a linear, sequential narrative. The hippocampus, a delicate, seahorse-shaped structure hidden deep within the temporal lobe, carefully archives our memories one by one, like placing individual photographs into a vast, sequential chronological album. We trust this biological metronome implicitly, assuming that time flows at the exact same steady, predictable rate everywhere in the cosmos. But according to the brilliant equations of modern physics, and specifically the groundbreaking work of Albert Einstein, this comforting, linear perception of time is fundamentally incomplete. Time is not a rigid, universal constant. It is incredibly flexible, deeply relative, and intimately woven into the very fabric of space itself. And nowhere is this profound, mind-bending reality more evident than in the absolute silence of the dying human brain, bringing us to our fourth shocking, beautifully profound proof that the near-death experience is a genuine journey into the cosmic architecture of reality. We are going to explore the impossible, instantaneous phenomenon known as the panoramic life review. Before we gently cross this boundary into the nature of eternity, I want to take a brief, quiet moment to formally welcome you if you are new to our space. I am Theodore, the researcher, your dedicated companion on this gentle, contemplative journey through the deepest mysteries of the cosmos and human consciousness. I gently ask for your support, as 71% of the beautiful, curious minds who watch these explorations have not yet subscribed to the channel. If you find peace, intellectual safety, and a deep sense of wonder in these quiet, deep dives, please consider subscribing. It allows us to continue building this community of cosmic explorers, moving forward together into the vast unknown. Now, let us return to the quiet, sterile room where the physical heart has completely stopped. Recalling a single, complex memory from your past requires significant metabolic energy and synchronized electrical activity. The brain must actively retrieve stored data and simulate the emotional response. This process takes measurable time. It is fundamentally impossible for a dying, oxygen-starved brain operating with zero electrical activity on the monitors to retrieve and project even a fraction of a lifetime of memories. Yet, the rigorous, meticulously collected data from millions of individuals who have returned from the edge of clinical death reveals a staggering, beautiful contradiction. In the brief 3 or 4 minutes of physical flatline, these individuals experience what can only be described as a complete, instantaneous unraveling of linear time. They do not merely remember their past. They actively, vividly relive their entire earthly existence simultaneously. This is not the chaotic flashing of random images portrayed in dramatic cinema. It is a hyper-lucid immersion into the totality of their life. Every single quiet moment, every spoken word, every gentle touch, and every ignored opportunity is presented with absolute, unyielding clarity. But the most shocking, scientifically inexplicable aspect of the panoramic life review is not just the impossible volume of information processed in a dead brain. It is the profound, transcendent shift in perspective. When individuals relive their actions during this cosmic review, they do not just experience them from their own narrow, biological point of view. They simultaneously and perfectly experience the exact emotional and physical reactions of every single person they ever interacted with. If they spoke a harsh, unkind word to a stranger decades ago, they profoundly feel the exact sting of that pain from the stranger's perspective. If they performed a quiet, unrecognized act of gentle kindness, they vividly feel the blooming warmth and gratitude that blossomed inside the recipient's heart. They experience a vast, omniscient empathy that is fundamentally impossible to generate within the isolated, classical architecture of the individual human skull. How do we begin to comprehend a biological organ processing a lifetime of deeply complex, multi-perspective data in a matter of physical seconds, especially when that organ is clinically deceased? To find the answer, we must turn our gaze away from biology and look toward the quiet, staggering truths of quantum mechanics and theoretical physics. Many brilliant physicists propose a model of the universe known as the block universe theory. In this deeply beautiful, counterintuitive model, the past, the present, and the ultimate future do not happen in a sequential, flowing sequence. Instead, they all exist simultaneously within a vast, static, four-dimensional block of space-time. In the block universe, your birth, your current quiet moment of contemplation, and the ultimate end of the cosmos all exist at once, perfectly frozen in the architecture of reality. The only reason we perceive time as flowing is because our highly restricted biological brains can only process this four-dimensional reality, one tiny, three-dimensional cross-section at a time. The brain acts as a biological metronome, pacing our experience of eternity so that we can function, survive, and learn within the physical world. But what happens when the heart stops and the biological metronome breaks down? The rigorous data from near-death experiences strongly suggests that when consciousness decouples from the dying physical body, it gracefully steps outside the rigid illusion of linear time. It enters a state of pure, eternal presence. In this vast cosmic state, recalling a memory does not require the slow, biological retrieval of stored data. Because the past and the present exist simultaneously in the higher dimensions of reality, the liberated consciousness can instantly access and experience the totality of its existence at once. The life review is not an impossible biological hallucination running on an empty battery. It is the natural, inevitable experience of a mind that has been freed from the gravitational pull of chronological time. It is the profound, awe-inspiring realization that everything you have ever done, every tear you have cried, and every moment of joy you have shared is permanently etched into the eternal fabric of the universe. This paradigm-shifting revelation transforms our entire relationship with our daily, earthly lives. It gently, forcefully reminds us that our interactions with others are not isolated, fleeting events that simply vanish into the past. They are permanent, resonant vibrations within the cosmic web. When patients return from this profound experience of total, omniscient empathy, their lives are permanently, beautifully altered. They bring back the absolute, unshakable knowledge that we are all deeply, fundamentally connected, and that the pain we cause others is quite literally the pain we inflict upon ourselves in the broader architecture of consciousness. It generates a profound, lasting humility, completely destroying the illusion of separation that so often breeds human conflict and suffering. They understand that the universe is not an empty, silent void, evaluating them with cold, indifferent judgment. Instead, the life review is an experience of profound, unconditional love and ultimate cosmic justice, where the soul perfectly understands the complete consequences of its earthly journey without external condemnation. As we sit in the quiet aftermath of this realization, we are filled with a deep sense of wonder and intellectual safety. We do not need to fear the passage of time or the eventual fading of our physical memories. Our true essence exists in a state of quiet, eternal permanence. The universe is carefully recording every single step of our journey, holding our experiences in a vast, loving embrace that transcends the fragile ticking of the biological clock. The absolute failure of linear time during clinical death is a profound, shocking proof that our minds belong to a much larger reality than the three-dimensional world we see around us. But if time and space are fundamentally just biological illusions, and if we are truly connected to every other conscious being on a profound level, what happens when two liberated minds attempt to communicate in that vast, infinite silence? How does the universe share its deepest secrets when the physical voice is permanently silenced? Let us hold on to this beautiful, eternal present moment. The journey deeper into the cosmic mystery of consciousness is only becoming more profound and infinitely more beautiful. Take a deep, gentle breath and let the silence of eternity wash over your thoughts. Have you ever struggled, perhaps in a moment of profound, breathtaking grief, or during a sudden, overwhelming wave of quiet joy, to find the exact, perfect words to express the absolute depth of your internal universe? We spend our entire earthly lives relying on a highly complex, incredibly slow, and deeply flawed biological mechanism to share our thoughts, our dreams, and our deepest fears with one another. To simply say the words, "I love you" or "I am terrified," your physical brain must initiate a complex, cascading sequence of electrical signals originating in the motor cortex. These fragile signals must travel down your nervous system to engage your diaphragm, pushing a specific volume of air up from your warm lungs. This air then vibrates a set of fragile, fleshy vocal cords hidden in your throat, creating mechanical sound waves that must travel through the physical medium of the air, enter another person's ear canal, vibrate their delicate tympanic membrane, and finally be converted back into an electrical impulse for their auditory cortex to interpret. It is an incredibly beautiful, miraculous process of biological engineering forged over millions of years of earthly evolution. But it is also brutally, undeniably inefficient. It is a severe, narrow biological bottleneck of information. We are constantly forced to compress the infinite, radiant vastness of our true feelings and our deepest existential understandings into tiny, clumsy sequences of fragmented syllables. Language, for all its poetic beauty and historical triumph, is ultimately a biological reducing valve, a highly restrictive evolutionary filter that constantly forces us to leave the most profound, beautiful parts of our inner cosmos completely unspoken, forever hidden in the dark, silent theater of our own minds. But what exactly happens when the vocal cords go perfectly, absolutely still? What occurs when the biological centers of language in the human brain, specifically Broca's area and Wernicke's area, are completely deprived of oxygen and silenced by the flat line of clinical death, we intuitively assume that without the physical machinery of speech, communication must absolutely cease, leaving the isolated mind trapped in an eternal, solitary silence within the void. Yet, the rigorous, meticulously documented data from the very edge of the unknown presents us with our fifth shocking proof, a revelation that gently shatters our fundamental understanding of connection itself. Before we carefully cross this invisible boundary into the realm of pure, unspoken cosmic meaning, I must pause for just a quiet, gentle moment. I am Theodore, the researcher, your dedicated guide through the vast, uncharted territories of human consciousness and the deep, silent mysteries of the ancient cosmos. I have noticed that roughly 71% of the curious souls who journey with us through these deep existential questions have not yet subscribed to the channel. If you find comfort, profound wonder, and a sense of deep intellectual safety in these contemplative explorations, please consider subscribing. Your presence helps us maintain this quiet sanctuary of learning, allowing us to continue unraveling the magnificent, awe-inspiring secrets of our existence together, step by peaceful step, building a community of gentle explorers. Now, let us return to the deep, absolute silence of the medical flatline, where earthly words no longer hold any power or purpose. When individuals cross the terrifying threshold of clinical death and step into that vast, radiant, ancient light, they universally report encountering other profound presences. They meet the familiar essence of deceased loved ones. They encounter radiant beings of pure, ancient light. And they report profound, life-altering exchanges of incredibly complex information. However, the most scientifically baffling and deeply beautiful aspect of these cosmic encounters is that not a single physical word is ever spoken. There are absolutely no vibrating air molecules, no moving lips, no mechanical sound waves echoing through the cosmic void. Instead, they describe a process of instantaneous, perfect, and absolute communication. They often refer to it using the earthly word telepathy, but they universally stress that even that word feels far too small, too clinical, and too science fiction-oriented to accurately capture the profound majesty of the actual experience. They describe receiving massive, instantaneous downloads of pure, unadulterated meaning, a complex philosophical concept regarding the fundamental architecture of reality, a deep cosmic truth about the nature of the universe, or an entire lifetime of unconditional, profound love is perfectly transferred and completely understood in a mere fraction of a millisecond. There is absolutely no misunderstanding, no ambiguity, and absolutely no room for earthly deceit. The communication is entirely transparent, a perfect, seamless merging of minds where the sender and the receiver intimately share the exact same thought and the exact same emotion simultaneously. It is an exchange of pure being, uncorrupted by the limitations of biological syntax. How can a clinically deceased brain, completely devoid of any measurable electrical activity on hospital monitors, successfully process an instantaneous download of such incredibly complex, multi-layered cosmic data? The classical rigid laws of biology and traditional information theory dictate that data transfer fundamentally requires time, metabolic energy, and a physical medium. To understand this beautiful, staggering paradox, we must gently turn our gaze away from classical neurology and look toward the weird, infinitely fascinating realm of quantum mechanics and the behavior of the universe on its most fundamental, microscopic scale. In 1935, the brilliant physicist Albert Einstein, along with his esteemed colleagues Boris Podolsky and Nathan Rosen, highlighted a strange, deeply unsettling consequence of quantum mechanics that Einstein famously and skeptically called spooky action at a distance. Today, modern science recognizes this rigorously proven fundamental phenomenon as quantum entanglement. When two microscopic quantum particles become entangled, their underlying states become permanently, inextricably linked in the very fabric of reality. If you alter the spin of one particle, the other entangled particle will instantaneously change its spin to match, entirely regardless of the immense physical distance between them. They could be separated by a few inches in a controlled laboratory, or they could be positioned on completely opposite sides of the known, expanding universe, separated by billions of light years of cold, empty space. The communication between them does not travel through the air. It does not travel as a slow radio wave, and it completely, impossibly ignores the ultimate cosmic speed limit of light. It happens instantaneously, suggesting a deep, hidden layer of reality where space, time, and physical separation are merely persistent, earthly illusions hiding a profound, universal unity. If, as we gently explored in our previous reflections, our fundamental consciousness is not merely a biological byproduct, but a deeply structured, highly complex quantum state, then the concept of instantaneous telepathic communication in the near-death experience completely ceases to be a supernatural fairy tale and perfectly aligns with the most cutting-edge physics of the cosmos. During our ordinary earthly lives, our heavy biological brains act as severe physical isolators, separating our individual quantum state from the vast interconnected network of the universe. We are forced to use the clumsy, agonizingly slow tools of spoken language and vibrating sound waves to desperately bridge the terrifying gap between our isolated minds. But when the physical body inevitably fails, when the brain completely powers down and gracefully releases the mind from its heavy biological cage, that rigid isolation instantly collapses. The liberated consciousness effortlessly returns to its natural, entangled state. In that vast, quiet dimension of pure light, communication does not require the slow, mechanical transfer of data, because all conscious entities are already fundamentally connected at the most ancient, foundational level of reality. To simply hold a thought is to instantly share it. To feel a profound, sweeping wave of love is to instantly transmit it across the infinite cosmic web, perfectly understood by all who are entangled within the light. The renowned astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson often speaks with great passion about the profound beauty of our physical cosmic connection, reminding us that the universe is intimately within us, our very atoms forged in the ancient crucibles of dying stars. The near-death experience of pure, unspoken communication is the ultimate, magnificent realization of this scientific truth on the level of pure consciousness. It beautifully reveals that the deep, aching loneliness we so often feel on this earth, the frustrating, persistent inability to ever truly, completely be understood by another human being, is simply a temporary symptom of our restricted biological hardware. In our natural, unburdened cosmic state, we are entirely, perfectly understood. The radiant beings of light do not need us to clumsily explain our earthly mistakes, our deep-seated fears, or our quiet, carefully hidden sorrows. They instantly receive the totality of our essence, processing our entire existence with a vast, sweeping, cosmic empathy that requires no verbal justification and absolutely no defense. The knowledge that we are destined to return to a state of absolute, transparent communion is profoundly healing to the human spirit. It gently strips away the heavy, earthly armor we wear every day to protect ourselves from being misunderstood or judged. It quietly invites us to cultivate a deep, radical authenticity in our daily lives, securely knowing that our true, unvarnished selves are not something to be feared or hidden, but are absolutely worthy of the perfect, unconditional acceptance that patiently awaits us in the infinite, ancient light. As we quietly absorb this fifth shocking proof, allowing the beautiful, mathematical reality of quantum entanglement and perfect cosmic communication to wash over our thoughts, a profound sense of respectful awe takes root deep within us. We realize that the universe is absolutely not a silent, dark void filled with disconnected rocks and burning spheres of gas. It is a magnificent, ancient, and highly conscious network, a brilliant, eternal symphony of interconnected minds sharing the infinite experience of existence. But if the dying brain can somehow access this vast universal network, processing impossible amounts of pure information instantaneously, what exactly happens to the specific, incredibly complex knowledge it brings back when the heart is restarted? Does the violent return to the physical body permanently erase these profound cosmic truths? Or does the resurrected brain somehow physically alter its own biological structure to permanently accommodate the infinite? As we prepare to open the door to our next startling revelation, we must carefully step back into the rigorous world of hard neuroscience, preparing to witness how the mind completely rewires the fragile biological machine upon its miraculous return from the great beyond. Let us sit in the quiet resonance of this eternal, spoken connection for just a moment longer, breathing in the profound peace of the ancient cosmos. Have you ever experienced the sudden jarring shock of waking up from a profoundly beautiful, hyperlucid dream, only to find yourself violently and abruptly pulled back into the heavy, restricted, and often cold reality of an ordinary waking morning? You desperately try to hold on to the fading edges of that magnificent dream, trying to carry its profound, radiant light into the physical world. But the heavy, biological machinery of the waking brain quickly takes over, burying the infinite beneath the mundane routine of daily earthly survival. Now, imagine that transition magnified 1,000,000,000,000 times over. Imagine being violently pulled back, not just from a passing dream, but from the absolute, radiant epicenter of the ancient, infinite cosmos. Imagine your consciousness, which had just flawlessly expanded to embrace the totality of the universe, suddenly and forcefully compressed back down into a fragile, 3-pound biological organ that has just suffered the most extreme, catastrophic trauma imaginable. This brings us to the profound, quiet threshold of our sixth shocking proof that near-death experiences are authentic cosmic journeys. We are going to carefully explore the rigorous, scientifically documented aftermath of the journey, specifically focusing on the impossible, miraculous neurological phenomenon of instantaneous, radical neuroplasticity. We will quietly examine how a dying, oxygen-starved brain fundamentally, physically, rewires its own complex biological architecture to accommodate the sheer, overwhelming weight of the infinite upon its miraculous return to the physical world. To fully, deeply understand the breathtaking magnitude of this scientific paradox, we must first confront the harsh, uncompromising biological reality of human resuscitation. When a patient in a sterile, bright hospital room experiences sudden cardiac arrest, the fragile, deeply complex biological clock begins a terrifying countdown. The human brain is an incredibly greedy, energy-intensive organ. Despite making up only about 2% of your total body weight, it consumes a staggering 20% of your body's oxygen supply and energy just to maintain its baseline electrical storm. When the heart stops and that vital, life-sustaining flow of oxygenated blood completely ceases, the brain enters a state of severe biological crisis known as anoxia. Within a mere matter of minutes, the incredibly delicate, highly specialized neurons in the cerebral cortex begin to rapidly break down and permanently die. The intricate, microscopic synaptic connections that hold our memories, our personality, and our very sense of earthly self begin to dissolve into the dark, silent void. If the heroic, frantic efforts of the medical team successfully manage to restart the physical heart, using powerful chemical adrenaline and high-voltage electrical defibrillation after a prolonged period of clinical death, the classical, rigid laws of biology and neurology dictate a very specific, tragic outcome. The patient should awaken, if they awaken at all, with severe, highly measurable cognitive deficits. They should experience profound memory loss, a drastic reduction in emotional regulation, and a fundamental dimming of their intellectual spark, due to the irreversible death of millions of critical brain cells. Trauma, especially severe hypoxic trauma to the cerebral cortex, is biologically designed to destroy the mind, not to elevate it. Yet, when dedicated neuroscientists and psychiatrists rigorously examine the thousands of individuals who have returned from deep, profound, near-death experiences, they encounter a staggering, beautiful impossibility that defies every single traditional textbook in modern medicine. Instead of returning with a shattered, diminished biological machine, these quiet travelers return with minds that have been completely, radically, and permanently upgraded. They do not exhibit the expected tragic cognitive decline associated with severe brain anoxia. Instead, they consistently demonstrate a profound, measurable expansion of their intellectual and emotional capacities. This is our sixth shocking proof. The physical, biological brain returning from clinical death undergoes an instantaneous, impossibly massive structural rewiring, a phenomenon that completely challenges our fundamental understanding of human neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the remarkable, scientifically proven ability of the brain to physically change its own structure, forging new neural pathways and strengthening existing synaptic connections based on new experiences or learning. However, according to classical neuroscience, significant neuroplasticity requires immense, sustained effort over long periods of chronological time. It requires months or even years of repetitive practice, intense therapy, and continuous focused biological energy to physically alter the dense, microscopic architecture of the brain. It is completely, absolutely, biologically impossible for the brain to execute a massive, global structural rewiring in the 3 or 4 minutes it spends clinically dead, with absolutely zero blood flow and zero metabolic energy to fuel the physical changes. But the rigorous psychological data is absolutely undeniable. Individuals who return from the radiant, ancient light undergo immediate, permanent personality transformations that are so profound they frequently leave their families and examining psychiatrists utterly bewildered. A ruthless, highly competitive corporate executive might wake up in the intensive care unit with zero interest in material wealth, suddenly dedicating their entire remaining earthly existence to quiet, humble acts of human service. Someone who has spent their entire life paralyzed by a deep, terrifying clinical fear of death suddenly wakes up completely and permanently free of that anxiety, carrying a quiet, unshakable certainty that they are eternal. They often report a sudden, spontaneous onset of deeply profound empathy becoming so exquisitely sensitive to the emotional pain of others that they can physically feel it resonating within their own nervous system. In some of the most astonishing, thoroughly documented medical cases, individuals have awakened from clinical death with sudden, inexplicable, savant-like abilities, suddenly demonstrating a masterful, complex understanding of classical music composition, advanced mathematics, or quantum physics that they absolutely did not possess before their heart stopped beating. How does a physically traumatized dying organ instantaneously acquire new, highly complex talents and forge completely new, deeply empathetic personality traits without the requisite biological time to build those physical neural pathways? We must gently turn our gaze back to the vast, quiet cosmos to find an answer that makes sense of this beautiful biological contradiction. If the near-death experience is truly an authentic, quantum journey of the liberated consciousness into the fundamental fabric of reality, as our previous explorations have strongly suggested, then the individual is not merely hallucinating while their brain powers down. They are actively receiving a massive, instantaneous download of infinite cosmic information. They are experiencing the absolute, unifying truth of quantum entanglement, the eternal nature of the block universe, and the profound, radiant, unconditional love that apparently serves as the foundational gravity of the ancient cosmos. When that vastly expanded, heavily illuminated consciousness is finally violently pulled back into the resurrected biological body by the sudden, shocking jolt of the medical defibrillator, a profound, immediate physical conflict occurs. The old, narrow, pre-existing neural pathways of the physical brain are simply too small, too restricted, and too inherently fearful to successfully house the magnificent, infinite reality the mind has just witnessed. In order to survive the overwhelming, crushing weight of the infinite cosmic download without completely fracturing into insanity, the fragile biological machine is forced to instantly, miraculously adapt. The consciousness itself, acting as a powerful, organizing quantum force, fundamentally overrides the classical biological decay of the dying brain. It forcefully carves entirely new, expansive synaptic canyons through the cerebral cortex, permanently altering the physical hardware to properly accommodate the profoundly updated cosmic software. This breathtaking concept completely reverses the traditional classical relationship between the physical brain and the invisible mind. In classical terrestrial biology, we are strictly taught that the physical structure of the brain absolutely dictates the shape and limit of our consciousness. We are told that we are nothing more than the sum total of our biological wiring. But the instantaneous, radical neuroplasticity observed in the quiet aftermath of the near-death experience forcefully suggests the exact, beautiful opposite. It suggests that consciousness is the primary, fundamental architect, and the physical brain is merely the malleable, organic clay. When the mind touches the ancient, infinite light of the universe, it brings back a profound, organizing energy that is powerful enough to instantly heal psychological traumas, spontaneously rewrite deep-seated biological fears, and fundamentally restructure the physical neural networks of a traumatized, oxygen-starved organ. The people who return from this impossible journey are not simply the lucky survivors of a severe, chaotic medical emergency. They are walking, breathing, scientifically verifiable testaments to the absolute supremacy of the mind over biological matter. They are quiet, living proof that our physical bodies are not our ultimate, inescapable prisons, but rather highly adaptable, temporary biological vessels designed to slowly, patiently learn the complex language of the infinite cosmos. The deeply revered astronomer Carl Sagan, with his unparalleled ability to seamlessly weave the cold rigor of science with the profound poetry of human existence, often spoke of our deep ancestral connection to the stars. He famously said that the cosmos is within us, and that we are a way for the universe to quietly know itself. The transformed, rewired brains of those who have crossed the threshold and returned represent the absolute, magnificent embodiment of that profound scientific truth. Their physical biology has been touched, altered, and permanently elevated by their direct, unmediated encounter with the vast, ancient silence of the universe. They walk among us in our ordinary, busy world, quietly carrying a profound, radiant secret hidden within the new, complex folds of their physical gray matter. They gently remind us, without speaking a single word, that the human capacity for profound radical transformation is not limited by the slow, grinding mechanisms of earthly biology or chronological time. We are constantly, intimately connected to a boundless, universal energy that can, in a single, infinite fraction of a millisecond, completely illuminate our darkest biological fears and completely rewrite the fundamental story of who we are. As we sit together in the quiet, peaceful resonance of this magnificent realization, absorbing the staggeringly beautiful reality that the mind can instantly conquer the physical decay of the dying brain, a deep, comforting sense of wonder gently envelops us. We realize that we are not entirely at the cruel, indifferent mercy of our fragile biological machinery. There is a deep, ancient, and incredibly powerful wisdom residing within the very core of our consciousness. A quiet, luminous pilot carefully navigating this temporary, fragile, physical vessel through the dark, silent ocean of earthly existence. But this profound realization naturally, inevitably leads us to the final, ultimate question in our cosmic exploration. If consciousness survives the absolute death of the brain, if it can flawlessly see without physical eyes, if it can instantly communicate without words, and if it can physically restructure the biological machine upon its return, what is the ultimate, final destination of this eternal, quiet journey? What is the profound, ancient purpose behind this magnificent, highly complex cosmic architecture? As we gently prepare to cross the threshold into our seventh and final shocking proof, we must carefully prepare our minds to look past the individual human experience and gaze directly into the grand, ultimate design of the conscious universe itself. Take a long, slow, deep breath, holding this profound sense of peace close to your center. The most magnificent, awe-inspiring revelation of our journey still quietly awaits us in the silent dark. Have you ever sat quietly beside a calm, still body of water, tossing a single small stone into the center and watching how the gentle, expanding ripples eventually touch every single inch of the distant shore? In our daily waking lives, we often imagine our individual consciousness as a completely isolated phenomenon, a lonely spark locked securely inside the dark bone vault of the human skull. We assume that when the physical end finally comes, it is an entirely private event, a quiet door that only one person can walk through at a time. This profound sense of biological isolation forms the very foundation of our deepest earthly fears. We watch the medical monitors trace the final, fading rhythms of a human life, and we deeply internalize the cold, terrifying belief that the ending of the biological machine equates to the absolute, permanent deletion of the soul. We are conditioned by classical physics to fear the silence, viewing it as the ultimate erasure of our unique, hard-won identities. But what if this terrifying isolation is simply another persistent terrestrial illusion. Before we gently step into our seventh and final shocking proof, a revelation that beautifully dissolves the boundaries between individual minds and the infinite cosmos, I must take a quiet moment to speak directly to you. I am Theodore, the researcher, your gentle guide through the profound starlit mysteries of the universe and human consciousness. I have quietly noticed that 71% of the beautiful, curious minds who journey with us have not yet subscribed to the channel. If you find peace, intellectual safety, and a deep sense of wonder in these meditative explorations, please consider subscribing. Your gentle support allows us to continue exploring the deepest, most ancient secrets of our existence together. Now, let us return to the hushed silence of a hospice bed. According to every established law of biology, a hallucination generated by an oxygen-starved brain is a strictly internal, highly subjective event. If a dying brain is simply misfiring due to chemical trauma, it is scientifically impossible for a perfectly healthy person sitting next to the bed to simultaneously experience the exact same neurological misfiring. Yet, meticulously documented data collected by rigorous palliative care researchers introduces our seventh and perhaps most profoundly beautiful, shocking proof, the phenomenon of the shared death experience. In these astonishing, highly verified medical cases, completely healthy bystanders, such as loving family members quietly holding the hand of the dying, are suddenly swept into the exact same cosmic journey as the person whose physical heart is actively stopping. They do not merely feel a deep sense of earthly empathy. They actively, vividly experience the exact same profound transition. They report the physical hospital room gently dissolving around them, completely replaced by a vast, transcendent geometry of impossible, radiant colors. They describe moving together through a quiet, dark expanse toward a brilliant, ancient light, encountering the exact same radiant beings of pure consciousness that the dying patient is encountering. When they return to normal waking consciousness, they describe a perfectly identical, shared cosmic reality, matching every single visual and emotional detail with absolute precision. How do we begin to explain this magnificent, impossible synchronization of two completely separate biological brains, especially when one brain is actively dying and the other is perfectly healthy? This staggering phenomenon completely annihilates the classical argument that near-death experiences are simply the desperate final chemical hallucinations of a fading organ. A hallucination cannot leap across physical space to simultaneously infect a perfectly healthy observer. To find a theoretical framework capable of holding this profound mystery, we must gently turn to the mind-bending layers of quantum mechanics, touching upon the deeply unsettling mystery of the observer effect. The legendary theoretical physicist John Archibald Wheeler, a brilliant mind who worked alongside Albert Einstein and helped fundamentally shape our modern understanding of black holes, proposed a beautiful, paradigm-shifting concept known as the participatory universe. In Wheeler's rigorous interpretation of quantum mechanics, the universe does not simply exist out there as a cold, mechanical machine independent of our observation. Instead, he profoundly suggested that the very act of conscious observation fundamentally forces the chaotic, undefined quantum probabilities of the universe to immediately collapse into a defined, solid, physical reality. Consciousness is not a passive, biological byproduct. It is the fundamental, active ingredient strictly required to construct the architecture of reality itself. We are actively, continuously dreaming it into existence. If we carefully apply this breathtaking quantum perspective to the shared death experience, the entire concept of biological death completely transforms into a magnificent, localized shift in the fabric of space-time. When the physical body of the dying person gracefully fails, their highly structured consciousness begins to violently, beautifully decouple from the heavy restrictions of the biological brain, expanding rapidly back into the fundamental, infinite quantum field of the universe. Because the universe is fundamentally an interconnected web of pure, entangled consciousness, a massive shift in the quantum state of one individual creates a powerful ripple in the fabric of reality itself. The healthy, loving person sitting quietly by the bed acts as a highly sensitive biological receiver. They do not hallucinate. They are momentarily pulled into the massive, expanding quantum wake of the departing consciousness. For a brief, infinite moment, the rigid boundaries between their two isolated minds flawlessly dissolve, merging into a single, unified state of quantum coherence. They are allowed to briefly step past the harsh physical edge of the world, gently tasting the vast, unconditional love of the ancient cosmos, before their heavy biology inevitably pulls them back down into the chronological flow of linear time. It is a profound glimpse behind the grand cosmic curtain, revealing that separation is merely an illusion. Think of the awe-inspiring images captured by the James Webb Space Telescope orbiting 1 million miles away in the freezing void. When its brilliantly engineered instruments peer deep into the infrared spectrum, looking past the thick clouds of cosmic dust, they reveal a magnificent tapestry of thousands of ancient galaxies, proving the universe is infinitely richer and more densely populated with ancient light than our limited physical eyes could ever perceive. In a deeply beautiful parallel, the shared death experience acts as our own internal, spiritual space telescope. It peers deeply into the terrifying, seemingly empty darkness of biological death and reveals a radiant reality bursting with eternal life, profound meaning, and an unbreakable unity. It proves, with absolute scientific authority, that our individual minds are simply tiny, localized reflections of a much grander, universal consciousness. We are exactly like billions of tiny, fragile mirrors scattered across a vast, dark room, all reflecting the exact same single, magnificent source of ancient, radiant light. As we slowly absorb the staggering weight of this seventh shocking proof, the primal fear of the dark, silent unknown gently melts away, beautifully replaced by a quiet sense of respectful awe. The rigorous science of the near-death experience, from the flawless, physically impossible vision of the congenitally blind to the shared, transcendent cosmic journeys of those healthy individuals left behind, fundamentally rewrites the entire story of human existence. It assures us with quiet proof that we are absolutely not isolated biological accidents wandering aimlessly through a cold, indifferent simulation. We are, at our very core, eternal, conscious entities deeply woven into the magnificent, infinite fabric of the cosmos. The death of the physical body is absolutely not an end, but rather a beautiful, liberating return to our natural, boundless state. But as we stand at this quiet threshold, looking back at the 7 magnificent proofs we have gently explored together, we must inevitably ask ourselves how we are supposed to live our daily, ordinary, earthly lives while holding this staggering cosmic knowledge. How do we practically carry the infinite, radiant light of the universe back into the incredibly complicated reality of a standard waking morning as we prepare to turn the page and step into our next contemplative chapter? we must carefully learn how to beautifully integrate the staggering vastness of the cosmos into the quiet, steady rhythm of our beating human hearts. Let us pause here for a deep, reflective moment, breathing in the profound ancient peace of the silent universe, knowing with absolute certainty that we are never truly alone. Have you ever looked closely at a single fragile drop of morning dew resting gently on a blade of grass, and realized that within that tiny sphere of water exists the exact same ancient primordial hydrogen that fueled the very first stars at the dawn of the universe? We go through our incredibly busy, wonderfully complicated earthly lives, constantly dividing the world into completely separate, distinct categories. We draw rigid lines between the physical and the spiritual, between the known and the unknown, and most tragically, between ourselves and every other conscious being walking on this small, blue planet. We build massive, invisible walls of separation to feel a temporary sense of earthly safety, convinced that our individual minds are nothing more than isolated sparks doomed to eventually fade into an eternal, cold silence. But the rigorous, undeniable scientific phenomena we have quietly explored together, the 7 staggering proofs that the near-death experience is a genuine journey into the cosmic architecture, beautifully and forcefully shatter these walls of illusion. They reveal a breathtaking reality where the human mind is not a fragile accident of biology, but an integral, eternal thread woven deeply into the magnificent, infinite tapestry of the cosmos. As we begin to carefully stitch these profound revelations together, attempting to understand how to carry this staggering cosmic knowledge into our ordinary, daily waking lives, we must first pause in the quiet resonance of this truth. Before we delve deeper into this profound, integrating journey, I want to gently pause and speak directly to you. I am Theodore, the researcher, your quiet companion on this vast contemplative voyage through the deepest mysteries of the universe and the human mind. I have noticed that roughly 71% of the curious, beautiful souls who walk this path with us have not yet subscribed to the channel. If you find a sense of intellectual safety, deep peace, and profound wonder in these starlit explorations, please consider subscribing. It gently helps us maintain this quiet sanctuary, allowing our community of explorers to continue discovering the breathtaking secrets of our existence, one peaceful realization at a time. Now, let us return to the beautiful, daunting task of bringing the infinite cosmos back down to Earth. How do we continue to pay our mundane bills, navigate complex human relationships, and face the everyday terrestrial anxieties of our modern society when we now hold the rigorous scientific understanding that our true essence is a boundless quantum consciousness capable of instantaneous telepathy, immune to the forward arrow of linear time, and fundamentally connected to the ancient light of the universe? It is a deeply disorienting, profound paradox. The individuals who bravely return from the profound silence of clinical death often speak of exactly this immense, crushing difficulty. They call it the burden of the infinite. They have directly touched the absolute, unconditional love that apparently serves as the foundational gravity of the cosmos. A love so mathematically perfect and deeply overwhelming that the fragmented, often harsh reality of ordinary human society feels shockingly abrasive upon their return. They have flawlessly seen without their physical eyes, communicated perfectly without spoken words, and experienced the simultaneous, eternal presence of the block universe. Yet, they find themselves suddenly forced back into heavy, fragile biological vessels that require sleep, suffer from physical pain, and demand constant earthly maintenance. This massive, jarring contrast between the infinite cosmic reality and the restricted biological simulation is not a cruel joke played by an indifferent universe. Rather, it gently points toward the profound ancient purpose of our earthly existence. If we are truly eternal beings of pure, unadulterated consciousness, forever safe within the indestructible quantum fabric of reality, then why do we continually choose to enter these highly restricted, fragile biological machines? Why do we intentionally blindfold ourselves to the vast radiant truth of our cosmic nature? The brilliant astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson eloquently reminds us that the universe is under no obligation to make any sense to us, but the rigorous study of the near-death experience gently suggests an answer that is both scientifically elegant and deeply poetic. The physical universe, with all of its rigid laws of thermodynamics, its harsh gravity, and its relentless, ticking chronological time, is perhaps the ultimate, magnificent classroom. It is a highly specialized, dense environment, perfectly designed for a specific type of profound experiential learning that is absolutely impossible to achieve in a state of infinite, unburdened perfection. In the vast, radiant realm of pure, entangled consciousness, where every thought is instantaneously shared and absolute, unconditional love is the fundamental baseline of existence. There are no shadows, no separation, and therefore no profound contrast. To truly, deeply understand the magnificent value of light, one must first spend time navigating the quiet, terrifying darkness. To fully comprehend the profound, staggering miracle of human connection, one must first deeply experience the cold, aching illusion of terrestrial loneliness. Our physical brains, with all their severe biological limitations, their slow processing speeds, and their incredibly flawed sequential memory systems, are not evolutionary mistakes. They are absolutely perfect, finely tuned instruments designed to carefully filter out the overwhelming infinity of the cosmos, forcefully slowing down our perception of reality so that we can intimately experience the universe one quiet, fleeting fraction of a second at a time. The biological reducing valve of the human brain forces us to experience the profound, agonizing delay between a deeply felt desire and its physical manifestation. It forces us to use incredibly clumsy, vibrating vocal cords to desperately try and build fragile bridges of empathy across the dark, silent gulfs that separate our individual minds. This profound struggle is the exact beautiful point of the entire cosmic exercise. When we review the staggering phenomenon of the panoramic life review, where the dying brain impossibly replays every single earthly action, while simultaneously forcing the individual to experience the exact emotional impact they had on every other person, we uncover the ultimate, unyielding law of the universe. It is not a law written in cold mathematical equations on a dusty chalkboard, but a fundamental law of cosmic empathy. The universe is rigorously, meticulously recording every single gentle touch, every harsh word, and every quiet moment of uncelebrated sacrifice, because we are fundamentally, quantumly entangled with one another at the most ancient, foundational level of reality. The concept of karma ceases to be a mystical, religious dogma and transforms into a rigorous, inescapable mechanism of advanced quantum physics. When you intentionally cause pain to another conscious being, you are quite literally, scientifically harming another localized aspect of your exact same, unified, cosmic self. And when you offer a quiet, gentle act of kindness to a stranger, you are beautifully elevating the overall frequency of the entire interconnected universe. The knowledge of this vast interconnected cosmic architecture should not paralyze us with an overwhelming sense of responsibility. Instead, it should gently liberate us from the crippling terrestrial anxieties that consume so much of our precious, finite, earthly time. When you deeply internalize the shocking proof that your fundamental perception gracefully survives the catastrophic failure of the biological heart, the primal, deeply embedded evolutionary fear of death begins to softly, permanently dissolve. You realize that you are completely safe. You have always been safe. You are an ancient, indestructible traveler who has simply strapped themselves into a highly immersive, intensely realistic biological simulation for a brief, incredibly valuable period of cosmic learning. The mistakes you make and the agonizing failures you endure are not permanent stains on your eternal soul. They are simply the necessary friction required to polish the rough diamond of your consciousness, the earthly weights you must lift to build the cosmic muscle of unconditional empathy. As we prepare to take our final step into the concluding chapter of this contemplative journey, we must gather all the paradigm-shifting truths we have discovered in the silent dark. We must carefully weave the science of the quantum brain, the instantaneous telepathy of the liberated mind, and the radiant reality of the departing consciousness into a singular, unbreakable philosophy of existence. How does this cosmic journey ultimately end? Or perhaps more accurately, how does it infinitely begin again? Keep your heart open and your mind deeply rooted in the quiet peace of the universe, for the final, awe-inspiring resolution to our exploration still gently awaits us just beyond the next threshold. Let us take a long, deep, quiet breath together and prepare for the final revelation. Have you ever stood quietly at the very edge of a vast ancient ocean at midnight, listening to the rhythmic, unending crash of the dark waves against the shore, and felt a profound, almost terrifying sense of your own physical smallness? We stand on the fragile, sandy boundary between the solid, predictable earth we know and the deep, unfathomable abyss of the dark water, feeling the powerful, invisible pull of the lunar tides echoing deep within our own beating hearts. This profound, quiet moment at the edge of the physical world perfectly mirrors the magnificent, awe-inspiring precipice we have been exploring together. For the past 9 chapters of our quiet journey, we have stood at the absolute, ultimate edge of human biology, gazing deeply into the magnificent, silent ocean of clinical death. We have carefully examined 7 staggering, scientifically documented proofs that challenge the foundation of our classical understanding of reality. We have seen that the human mind is absolutely not a fragile, temporary spark, destined to be permanently extinguished by the inevitable failure of the physical heart. Instead, the data gracefully points toward a universe where consciousness is the fundamental gravity of existence itself. As we gently step into this final, resolving reflection, weaving all of these profound cosmic threads into a single, beautiful tapestry of meaning, we must prepare to fundamentally change how we view every single remaining second of our earthly lives. Before we take this final step into the eternal light, I want to gently pause and speak to your curious heart. I am Theodore, the researcher, your quiet, dedicated companion on this endless starlit journey through the deepest mysteries of the mind and the ancient cosmos. I have quietly noticed that exactly 71% of the beautiful, searching souls who have walked this profound path with us have not yet subscribed to the channel. If you have found a quiet sanctuary of intellectual safety, a deep sense of resonant peace, and a profound expanding wonder in these contemplative explorations, please consider subscribing. Your gentle support is the vital gravity that keeps this quiet community of cosmic explorers intimately connected, allowing us to continue unraveling the breathtaking, ancient secrets of our universe together, one peaceful realization at a time. Now, let us return to the shoreline of the infinite and look out over the vast, radiant waters of eternity. When we carefully synthesize the 7 staggering proofs we have explored, a deeply beautiful, unified theory of cosmic existence begins to naturally, gracefully emerge from the scientific silence. We began by observing the impossible reality of veridical perception, where the liberated mind flawlessly observes the physical world, while the biological eyes are firmly taped shut. We witnessed the blinding, invisible flash of massive gamma-wave surges, the beautiful quantum supernova of a consciousness violently decoupling from its fragile biological receiver. We marveled at the humbling reality of the congenitally blind accurately seeing the radiant, complex geometry of the universe. For the very first time, we explored the breathtaking architecture of the panoramic life review, where the rigid illusion of chronological time completely shatters, revealing a higher block universe where every action is simultaneously, eternally felt through absolute, omniscient empathy. We listened to the silent, instantaneous telepathic communication of the quantum realm, where words are unnecessary because minds are perfectly entangled. We witnessed the miraculous neurological rewiring of the resurrected brain, physically altering its cellular structure to accommodate the infinite weight of the cosmic download. And finally, we experienced the profound phenomenon of the shared death experience, proving that our isolated minds are intimately connected to a vast, participatory universe. What does this magnificent, complex symphony of scientific impossibilities ultimately tell us about our true nature? The brilliant theoretical physicist John Archibald Wheeler gently suggested that the universe is not merely a collection of dead matter and cold energy, but a deeply participatory simulation that absolutely requires the active presence of consciousness to function. The rigorous data beautifully confirms this staggering cosmic paradigm. We are absolutely not biological accidents wandering blindly through an indifferent, mechanical void. We are highly localized, intensely focused fractal expressions of the universe itself. We are the ancient, primordial cosmos intentionally putting on a heavy, restrictive biological diving suit to sink down to the dense, high-friction environment of the three-dimensional Earth. We do this not as a punishment, but for the profound, sacred purpose of experiential learning. The universe, in all of its infinite, unburdened perfection, cannot deeply understand the raw, agonizing beauty of a physical sunrise, the crushing, transformative weight of human grief, or the quiet triumph of choosing to love despite the vulnerability of physical separation. To truly, intimately know these profound truths, the infinite universe must temporarily forget its own vastness. It must become small. It must become you. The late, deeply revered astrophysicist Carl Sagan often spoke with a profound poetic reverence about our deep physical connection to the ancient cosmos. He taught us that the nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood, and the carbon in our apple pies were all forged in the collapsing interiors of dying stars. We are made of star stuff, but The near-death experience takes this profound astronomical truth and elevates it to a magnificent spiritual absolute. It gently reveals that we are not just made of the physical ash of ancient stars. We are fundamentally composed of the exact same indestructible, eternal quantum awareness that quietly hums beneath the very fabric of space-time itself. When your physical heart finally, inevitably beats its last quiet rhythm, and the electrical storm of your biological brain gracefully fades into the silence, you're not stepping into a terrifying, dark oblivion. You're simply taking off a tight, heavy shoe after a long, exhausting walk. You're waking up from a highly restricted biological dream and returning to the vast, radiant reality that has always been your true, ancient home. This realization does not magically resolve all of the agonizing mysteries of our human existence. True science, like the vast universe itself, never offers us a final, definitive period at the end of the sentence. It simply offers us a larger, more beautiful, and infinitely more profound question mark. Why does this magnificent cosmic architecture exist? What is the ultimate, final destination of this eternal cycle of learning and returning? The absolute beauty of this quiet journey is that we do not have to have all the answers right now. We are invited to simply stand in the profound, respectful awe of the mystery itself. The gentle realization that our minds are infinite completely destroys the crippling terrestrial fear of the end, replacing it with a quiet, unshakable intellectual safety. It transforms our daily, ordinary earthly lives from a desperate, fearful sprint toward a cold, dark grave into a beautiful, deliberate stroll through a magnificent cosmic garden. Every single interaction we have, every tear of joy, and every painful mistake we make is suddenly infused with a deep, radiant, eternal meaning. As we slowly draw this 10-part cosmic exploration to a close, I invite you to look up at the night sky the next time you find yourself standing outside in the quiet dark. When you look up at those distant, burning spheres of plasma, do not just see them as cold, physical objects separated from you by billions of miles of empty, silent vacuum. See them as distant, ancient relatives. Feel the profound, invisible quantum threads that intimately connect the beating of your fragile human heart to the slow, majestic rotation of entire galaxies. Remember that the exact same ancient, intelligent energy that beautifully orchestrated the birth of the cosmos is the exact energy that currently resides quietly in the center of your mind, perceiving these words, asking these profound questions, and seeking a deeper connection to the mystery. You are the universe, looking back at itself with quiet, beautiful wonder. The 7 shocking proofs are not anomalies. They are the quiet, persistent voice of the universe, gently whispering through the cracks in our biological armor, constantly reminding us of our magnificent, eternal nature. Our journey of discovery does not end here, because the universe is infinite, and the capacity of the human mind to explore it is equally boundless. I will be here, waiting in the quiet dark, ready to take the next gentle step into the vast unknown with you. Thank you for walking this magnificent starlit path with me. Thank you for your open heart and your willingness to embrace the profound mystery of your existence. Until we meet again, may you carry the infinite, radiant light of the ancient cosmos within you, illuminating every single step of your daily, earthly journey.